This episode podcast is brought to you by Freddy vs. Jason vs. Alien vs. Predator vs. Flintstones vs. the Jeffersons vs. Godzilla vs. King Kong. This summer's next big blockbuster. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Roll the Credits, the podcast, the only podcast that listens to Jesus and the Bride of the Draculas. I'm Zach.
And I'm Frank.
And today we are here to talk about Under the Silver Lake. This movie I have been wanting to watch for the longest time.
Really?
It was on my list for so long. I watched this 14-minute long video about the
14,
weird,
not 13.
not it's
15,
14.
14 minutes.
You got to cut some time down.
Yeah.
YouTube is really getting personal with that stuff. But I watched this 14-minute long video about it where it was explaining the whole hype around this film and what it went through, and we'll get into that. But it was just super, super weird. And then being an A24 film, I was I gotta check this out at some point. And then it was do not watch past this point if you haven't seen the movie, because heavy spoilers. And I was
and you watched it?
yeah, I was well, no, I didn't watch it at that point. I was I gotta watch the movie first, and then I watched that. Because it is a mystery film. I don't want to ruin everything about it. So we'll get into that. A24, Under the Silver Lake, 2018. It was directed by David Robert Mitchell, who also did It Follows. So when I found that out, I was I think I'm going to like this a little bit more. Mm-hmm. You really only have two people in this film. You have Andrew Garfield, who plays Sam, and you have Riley Keough, who plays Sarah, who is also in It Follows. But you do have a couple of weirder ones. You have Licky Rindholm, who plays the actress girl in the beginning, and she's got more than one scene, so I added her in. You got Topher Grace, who's in this as his friend, who's in it for a couple of scenes, so I was fine, I gotta add him in too. You have Sydney Sweeney in here for a scene,
Yeah.
which was just kind of fun to have her in there. And then you have Jimmy Simpson, who plays Alan, who is his other weird friend, but I know him as one of the Boyles from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was okay, fine. So if you don't know what Under the Silver Lake is about, it's a weird movie. So it's a disenchanted young man named Sam who sets out to find a woman living next door to him that disappears the next day, and then discovers a massive conspiracy within LA. And that's the plot. You weren't super thrilled about this when I picked it, so what, you didn't like it?
Well, I've seen this movie before.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this movie when it came out, when they actually released it onto Amazon, I think, where
Yeah.
they originally dumped it. So yeah, I think it's kind of important to talk about the mess of what the fuck this movie went through.
Yeah, because I think it got mixed reviews at Sundance when it first premiered, and then it got pushed back twice for its theatrical release, and then they were nope, just straight to video to home.
Yeah. So assuming that's because I have to imagine this is what happened. A24, they see that Mitchell is making his next movie. It Follows was such a big success. Everybody loved It Follows.
Yeah.
They're we gotta be behind his next movie, right? Mm-hmm. They gave him what seems like a lot of creative freedom.
Yeah.
Didn't seem like anybody was holding his hand during this at all. It seemed like this was all him.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of it seems like they just let him go. They were go make your movie. We trust you. Was that the smartest decision? I don't know. So I have to imagine that, they're excited. The executives in A24 are all excited. They're sitting there, they're watching the movie. And then the reviews come out for for this movie at Cannes.
Yeah.
And pretty negative reviews overall.
Yeah.
And I think the executives at A24 went, ooh.
We can't have a bad movie.
Ooh, okay. So, yeah, I have to imagine that they just kept pushing it back, because I honestly think that A24 just didn't want anybody to see this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of unfortunate because you kind of want to imagine that if a studio is backing you, that they're going to back you.
Yeah.
No matter what. And it just seemed like it didn't happen. It seems like they were just nope, okay, we're not going to do any promotion. Nobody saw a trailer for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, they just released it straight to VOD, and then that was it. And it just had to have a nice day, and it was done. And I can understand why.
Yeah, it is a weird set for a movie. Between like the cinematography is really good in this film. I personally think, but like the sound design, the score, like the overall like character of Sam is like really hard to kind of like get behind, and I'll go into that like further like once we get to that point. But it's just a weird film, and it's weird too because it's like this is an A24 film, and like they're known for like letting their directors do like different like more art house style things, different like weirder stuff, and giving them full control. And it's like for them to be like, we're gonna push this movie under the rug, is kind of like the black sheep of A24 almost.
Yeah.
But then there's also like a weird thing about this film where it's like, because if you look at like also like general public like reviews about it, this film has almost become like a cult classic.
I think that in a very kind of, I think this movie is made for a very specific kind of like subgenre of people.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that people who like this movie love this movie.
Yeah. And that's what's weird too, is like because it's so like niche to kind of like get behind. Because like if you look at this, like it's got horror elements, it's a thriller, but it's also like straight up a mystery, but it's also straight up like a neo-noir, but it's also like a black comedy. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that's in that like don't fully mesh well together.
Yeah.
And like people that are only interested in like when we did Brick, like that's just straight up like a neo-noir film. And it's like you can get behind that because it's like if you like neo-noir and if you like mystery films, then it's like boom, there you go, you got it.
Yeah.
But like this adding in like 4 other genres is like, all right, it's a little much now.
Yeah, I think that this movie could have benefited a little bit from A24 maybe stepping in a little bit and being like, hey, let's kind of guide this train a little bit, because I mean, this seems like this is such a fuck you movie.
Well, yes, to the Hollywood industry.
And just like to everything, to the industry of Hollywood. And this is such like I have to imagine that absolutely hands down, this is the exact movie that he wanted to make.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's just firing on all cylinders. Yes. And he's like, fuck you, I'm going to make the movie that I want to make, and nobody's going to tell me shit. And to an element, like there's an element of that I respect so much, where it's like, okay, amazing. Like just go out and just fucking make your movie and don't let anybody tell you shit. But you also are making a movie that is being released to people, and like this is such like a self-indulgent kind of movie. I feel, this movie is for him, and it seems like him only.
Yeah, and it's super weird too, because it's like you almost have to think then, because of like the success of It Follows, where it's like a lot of people love that film. Like it came out and like he got like so much praise for it, and then this movie comes out, and it's almost like did executives and like Hollywood like push him a lot to make like that movie a specific way, and then this is like his kind of like revenge movie,
right?
Of like, I have full control, I'm gonna say what I want to say.
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know.
Right.
There's also like the weird meta thing about this film where it's like, besides the fucking conspiracy that goes on in the film, there's also this weird conspiracy about the film where it's like people think that there's like Morse codes, and like there are like symbols sprinkled like throughout the film where it's like if you can like put them together and like make like the cipher for it, then it tells you like all these things about the movie, like about the Hollywood industry. It'll also, I think, tell you about like who the dog killer is. It'll also tell you like what really, really happens within the film. Because there's a lot of loose ends in this film.
Yeah, there's so many.
And I don't usually mind it so much when films, because I like we've talked about this, like I like ambiguous films. I like films that make me think about everything. But there's like 5 different stories in this film, and like
none of them really have a resolution.
Kind of one has a resolution, and that's it.
Yeah. It's a weird movie.
It is.
And it's intense, and it goes on for too long. This movie is bloated as fuck. Yeah. This movie has so many subplots and so many things, and nothing is really ever truly explored in detail that will, me as an audience member feel gratified and satisfied with any real plot.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. And I remember being, yeah, I mean, like when you said that we were doing this movie, you probably saw my face, right? And I looked a little maybe disappointed, or I don't know what I looked, but it's because like I wasn't looking forward to rewatching it.
Yeah.
Because I felt pretty strongly about my opinion on it the first time I saw it. And I kind of just never spoke about it to anybody because I'm like, no, like I'm not. And like, I do recommend watching it. I think it's worth at least one watch. But I don't know if I would ever go back to this movie. And it's kind of like strange because this movie, I think, deserves in a way, like it kind of needs you to go back to it because there's no way that you're going to get everything that is being said here in one watch.
Yeah.
And there's probably a million things that I missed in this movie. But that being said, the movie doesn't interest me enough. Like I don't enjoy the film enough to want to go back.
Yeah.
To rewatch it and to want to, decipher different things that he's trying to say in this movie. Because Jesus Christ. It's just like I mean, dude, the last like 20, 30 minutes are just like, goddamn. Like, can we move this along, please?
So here's like the weird thing about this film that I think I'm in the minority for. I actually really like this movie.
Yeah.
Like I found like this weird like niche thing about it where it's like I'm just kind of into it. And I don't know, like I agree. This movie is like way too long.
It's
like
way too long.
2 hours and 20 minutes is like long for a movie in general, and then for a film like this, like 9 times out of 10, like a mystery film or like a noir film can be solved within like 2 hours tops. Like an hour 45. Like that's kind of like the perfect like recipe for it. But I was never bored with like him like trying to figure out this mystery of like what happened to Sarah, and then like discovering all this weird like LA shit about it too.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I wouldn't necessarily say that I found myself bored, but I guess I found myself confused.
Yes.
And
like
that's, I think, an issue when you're watching a movie, because I think that there's a difference between a filmmaker confusing the audience member on purpose and you kind of almost feeling like you're in good hands, so like you can kind of accept it, versus just genuinely being confused.
Yeah.
And because there's so many subplots and because there's so many things that never actually come to a resolution, it's so tough.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense where it's like once you're finished with it, like you don't feel the best about watching it because it's like you got nothing out of it.
Yeah, and I can understand somebody like you or, anybody who actually does really, really love this movie. I can understand, I think, why you love this movie. Because there are movies that exist like this to me that I love too. Like these big, giant messes of a film that are not perfect, that are hugely flawed, that don't make any sense in some cases, but I still love them.
Yeah.
And you kind of accept the movie for what it is and all of its baggage that it comes with. This movie, I can't do it.
I know.
I can't do it with this movie.
Like, I think, too, like, even if, like, at the very, very end, because it's, like, when Sam goes to, like, his weird, like, hippie, like, neighbor and, like, sleeps with her, and it's, like, he keeps hearing, like, this parrot say something.
Yeah.
And it's, like, had the parrot, like, had, like, something to kind of, like, solidify anything about this film, I think it would have been like a little bit easier to kind of like digest. It's like, okay, like the parrot at least like heard something that gave you some type of answer.
Yeah, I guess so, right? Like, and I'm sure that again, this movie is so detailed with so many little things that I'm sure that whatever that parrot is saying does mean something. I don't know what the fuck it was saying.
I don't like. That's the thing too. Is like maybe it's one of those cipher things where it's like it's saying
if you
something.
play it backwards,
yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
Like you don't know, or you slow it down, or you pitch it down, or whatever. Like I'm sure that maybe there is something there, but I am not going to do that.
And that's what's crazy too, because it's like the film actually got like not an FBI or like CIA, but like somebody like in the government, like a worldwide known like cipher, like I don't know what they do. The fucking people that like figure out like puzzles and shit.
Okay.
They actually like he actually got somebody for this film to do all of that.
Yeah.
So it's like there's got to be like something bigger within this film, but it's like again you have to take it and be like this is a movie.
Right, yeah.
Like you're supposed to get like sit there and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And like you can again like we've talked about this like you can chalk it up to where it's like oh like you know it's this massive mystery that's like bigger than just the movie because like it's an industry thing about like LA and Hollywood. But then it's like again you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
It's like you're there for 2.5 hours to watch something and enjoy it and get invested in the story. And like if it doesn't pay off, then it's like what the fuck? Like I'm like you're never gonna be like, oh, like, you know, the movie's over, let me go talk to Sam and like figure out what he's doing now about it.
Right.
It's like that's just it. Like you're stuck with that.
Yeah.
But again, too, then there's like that the cool like sprinkles of like the Hollywood problems where it's like, you know, when he's walking down the street and like he sees like the casting call when it's just like some gross guy's like garage.
Yeah.
And it's like that's a real thing in Hollywood. And like the nightlife parties and like the drugs and the alcohol and the scene with the composer that like has written like every song like known to man. And it's like, why do you do it? And it's just like, well, because I do it.
Yeah.
It's like there's no answer to it. It's just that's
yeah,
it.
that's honestly one of my favorite parts of the film is when he
That-
sits
that-
down with the musician because
It's great.
that actually felt like it was saying something.
Yeah.
Where it's like all of these things that you think was like a rebellion, right? He has like the Nirvana, like
Yeah.
Teen Smells Like Teen Spirit thing, and he's like, you thought that this guy, right? You thought Kurt Cobain was like going against the grain, and he was like the rebel.
yeah. But I wrote that
But
song.
I fucking wrote it, and it's just like it's pretty much just like trying to say, I guess, you know, that everybody's a plant in there, and this whole system is being ran by a few people,
Yeah.
and you know you're never gonna know who they are, and you're never gonna find them because you're not meant to.
Yeah.
But you know they are planting people and kind of giving you the idea of like, hey, this guy, this Kurt Cobain guy is, you know, he's like totally like off the wall and he's like doing his own thing, and I love that, and I love how much of like a rebel he is, and it's so cool. But in reality, he's just being pulled by the strings of somebody else.
Yeah.
So like everything that you've ever liked and everything that you've ever loved is essentially like this facade,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really cool concept, and I love that.
Like if that was like the only piece of it where it's like that's talking about Hollywood, I feel like it would have been like a little bit more digestible.
Right.
Because it's like most of the movie is talking about Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then he bashes his brain in, and I know you loved that part.
Oh yeah, the gore is great.
Yeah,
You
like
know,
that was-
watching his face cave in and all that. It's like, yeah, cool. But again, like it feels kind of hollow, sort of, because it's like, okay, we did that, and I thought that this was going to be kind of like leading to something, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't
Yeah.
really.
Like I think it's funny in a sense because it's like, you know, he's still like at this point, and you almost forget at this point that he's still trying to search for Sarah. And it's like he gets to that mansion, which again too, I'll talk about it after this. Like I really, really like some of the old school style like noir things that they did in this film.
Yeah, I mean, this whole movie is like I don't know,
An
it's like
homage
it's like an
almost?
homage to like old Hollywood. I mean, you have Sarah,
Yes.
right, who's like
When
she's doing like these Marilyn Monroe
Mm-hmm.
like things that happen where I can't remember the name of the film. It was the one that she died, like the film never ended up getting completed because she died.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, like they're doing like the exact same, like very famous kind of like footage of Marilyn Monroe coming out of the pool and doing like the leg thing and like being naked and like covering herself.
Yeah.
And you know, when Sarah's introduced, she's got like the
Yep.
big hat and like and it's very kind of old school, like 1940s, 1950s introduction to a character.
The one that I liked though was like when Sam like goes and brings like the dog treat to the dog, and like she steps out and it's like it's all black, but like
Just
she's-
that white light
she's
on
got
her
like
eyes.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
like that's a noir thing. Like
Yeah.
that's really cool. And like again, like when Sam goes to the mansion, it's like the entire mansion is a painting.
Yeah.
Like that's old school. Like when they didn't have the budget to like go find these places or like make these places, they painted it.
right.
And there's something to love about that. Like I enjoy like films like that where it's like we don't have the budget, let's just paint it and like make it look as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
And it looked really cool. Like it's noticeable enough where it's like, oh, that's a painting, but it's not noticeable enough that like I'm taken aback by it.
Yeah.
And I really, really liked that. And then I forgot where I was going with like the whole composer thing, but like had that just been like the one spot with it, I feel like it would have been like a little bit better.
Yeah, because I mean, dude, the conclusion of this movie is so to me, it's just not satisfying in any way.
Yeah, like I've looked it up. I think like it honestly comes down to the point where it's like the way that Sam looks back at his apartment and it's got like the like logo of like stay quiet over the door. And it's like the way that he looks at it, he's kind of like just contempt at this point where it's like he's finally realized that like nothing matters, so like why don't I just go with the flow?
No, and I understand that, but that's actually not what I was referring to.
Oh.
I was referring to when he actually found Sarah.
Oh, right, yeah, where it's just kind of like anticlimactic.
It's
where it's
so just
yeah.
She's just down there and she's like, yeah, this is my life now and that's it. And I'm like, and I get it. I understand what he's trying to say. I understand that it's like these actresses or people in Hollywood, you know, they get brought in by like these scummy fucking guys and then they kind of are willing to do things because they think that it's whatever, like going to make their career and like, you know, it's just kind of accepting like this is what the life, you know, this is what I have to do in order to be famous and be a part of this lifestyle. And I get it. But like, Jesus Christ, dude, like just, and like, it's so, and like, I don't know, there's something that I kind of enjoyed about her even sort of questioning him where he's like, I've been looking for you. And she's like, why?
Yeah.
She's like, you barely even know me. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Like why you met this girl one time. You had one weird evening with her.
Of just eating like crackers and orange juice.
Yeah, and like you just became obsessed because Sam's a weird character. He's like this like overly sexual, like there's so many things that he does in this movie that are like he's so like hypersexual.
Yeah, like it's very questionable, especially too because it's like if you had like a main character that like down to the core is likable, like it could have gone like a little bit further, but like Sam's kind of a piece of shit.
Sorta.
Like most of the film, he's very much like just a misogynistic.
Yeah.
Like, I know that there's like theories about like, you know, that Sam is actually the dog killer.
That's what I think.
And I kind of get it because it's like, you know, like whenever like somebody's like talking to him, like they're like barking, like all that type of thing. And like when he sees like what looks like Sarah like murdering somebody in the park, like it kind of looks like Sam. And then he talks about like, you know, how he used to have like a dog and like now he carries like the biscuits in his pocket. And then like he meets at the party like his ex-girlfriend and it's like that was kind of like the reason why is like, oh, I keep them because like she had a dog and I keep hoping that she'll take me back.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, it all points to like him being the dog killer and I can see why. Especially too like the opening shot of like beware the dog killer and then it just immediately goes to Sam.
Yeah.
It's like kind of it's telling you right off the bat that he is, but we never get that answer. But there's like another side too where it's like, you know, Sam is like basically using women throughout this entire film, and the other side of it that I read where it's like the theory is that he's not the dog killer is like when women are like barking at him like in the bathroom scene like after he gets kicked in the nuts. Which is also not the way to go about like trying to be like, hey, have you seen this girl?
Yeah.
It's almost like him mentally trying to like bring women down a peg because like they got the upper hand of him in that point where it's like, oh, like, you know, I got kicked in the nuts and they're telling me that I'm a piece of shit for being in the women's bathroom. So I internally am making them bark so in that way they're lesser than me. That's what I read too, which also kind of makes sense. Like
there's so many different ways to interpret this movie.
It's crazy, but Sam is like a piece of shit. Like he's not a good detective. He's not really a good person. Like he uses women throughout the entire film. Like the actress girl, I have no idea like what her deal is. Like if that's like a girlfriend or like friends with benefits type thing, but she comes around a lot and like brings him food and then they just have sex and then that's it.
Yeah.
When he calls like the Shooting Star company and like talks to that girl and like in his mind he's trying to get information, but realistically he's just trying to like get with somebody.
Right.
It's like all these things where it's like he's not a good person.
Yeah.
And it's like you kind of forget about it, like, while he's trying to, like, solve this mystery, but, like, in the back of your mind, you're like, he's still a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So it's like,
And you're right. You kind of like hit it right on the nose when you said like he's not a very good detective, because like this movie, you get to the point where he runs into that other guy who's got the conspiracy. He's got like all the faces on the wall and all that, and the movie just basically gave you the answer right then and there, where it's like, well, first off, it didn't make any sense to me because this guy like crawls into that little sub room, and he's like, oh, I'm looking. He's like looking for whatever, and then he pulls out this like box of cereal with a map on the back, right?
Yeah.
And the way that he explains that, he's like, this is like basically what my career of doing all this has like been leading up to, essentially. But like meanwhile, you have this like cereal box in the back of in like the room where you're like, I don't remember exactly where I left it, but it's like this is the most important piece of the puzzle that you think.
yeah.
And then he literally says, it's a map that goes from the Silver Lake straight to the Hollywood Hills sign. That is
Where he's supposed to go
That's
to.
where, like, that is what this movie is leading up to. It's like, yes, this is where I need to go. And then we have this whole, another fucking hour and whatever of him trying to figure this out, all just to get led back to
The Hollywood sign.
him going and like looking at that cereal box and finding the map and circling Silver Lake and going to the Hollywood sign. But it's like, that guy told you this an hour ago in the movie. This guy told you days ago.
I know. And then he dies.
That's like what this, like this whole thing is leading up to here. And like, you're going to sit there and tell me that guy never went up there?
Yeah.
And like saw those 3 lines and then was like, what are those? And
Yeah.
meanwhile, he knows what the fuck, he's got the pamphlet of all the hobo like logos and symbols and what they all represent and stuff. It's like, this movie makes no fucking sense.
I know. And then the whole thing with like the owl's kiss.
Yeah,
where it's
what
like,
the fuck?
Like, that's really cool, but again, too, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's the whole thing where it's like you can't go up like past the Hollywood sign because like there's a ghost or some shit like past dark. But it's like this like owl's kiss thing was like, oh, cool. Now there's like a supernatural element to this when like he goes to like the guy's like apartment and watches back the tape and then sees her. And then really creepy like in his apartment when she crawls out of like the desk.
Yeah, I think she was in the oven, right?
I don't know, like a cupboard or something like that. And it was like really, really creepy. And it was like, whoa, this is really cool. Like if this was like what this movie was about.
Yeah.
Like if you had that whole thing be like the reason for everything, it's like, okay, now we got something.
Right.
But I don't know. Like, and then there's like another conspiracy that like, because people saying that like Sam is the dog killer, like they mentioned something where it's like entities of Hollywood can't like harm other entities of Hollywood. So it's like the owl's kiss, like, can't harm him because he's the dog killer. It's fucking, like, it's so much.
I don't know anymore, man.
I know. Like, this movie is, like, hurting me, like, as I talk about it.
It's just too much. There's
It
too
is.
much in this movie. And it's unfortunate because, I mean, I still want to see, like, what he does next. And I'm interested to see because he's got a few upcoming projects. But, like, we got to reel it back a little bit.
Yeah. like somebody else has got to have, like, a little bit of control of it.
Yeah, man, this movie's a fucking mess. This movie is just, and like again, there's elements because of how messy it is that it's kind of endearing and like I kind of like it, and I love how big and how massive this movie is, and like this is a fucking swing of a movie. Like this guy took a huge swing, and I like that movies like this are still being made.
Mm-hmm.
I can really appreciate that. But Jesus Christ, like we gotta dial it back a little bit because again, so many subplots, there's so many things that are in like just never come to a conclusion, at least by like a general viewer's kind of, watching this, right? Like maybe there's conclusions in here, but you then have to decipher things and whatever. And like I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I don't have
It's a fucking movie. I'm not gonna sit here and dedicate 2 weeks of my life going into Reddit and like looking at all the like I'm not doing it. It's just too much.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But in a
4
sense,
out of 10 for me.
in a sense, it did give us something to talk about. Which
Of course.
I appreciate that. Even to like the overarching like theme, besides obsession, is like seeking answers / like gratification and getting no payoff.
Yeah.
Because my brother who works with like in the psychology field, like tells me that all the time. Like that's a major thing where it's like people that have like these mental illnesses that are like seeking gratification and then just like getting nothing in return, and then trying to like kind of bring it back to where it's like, okay, so what did that mean for you then? So I don't know. I want to give it like a 6 out of 10 for like the book stand, because that was, I don't know if you saw that. That was like fucking awesome. Like when he goes to like the bookstore and like that main desk that's just made out of books.
Yeah.
I was like, I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Weird movie.
It's a weird movie.
A movie that it's hard to recommend to people as well.
Yeah. Because like you gotta kind of be like, okay, you gotta kind of know like what type of movies they're into before you can be like, hey, Under the Silver Lake.
Yeah. And I can understand why A24 didn't want anybody to see this movie.
But I can also understand why A24 still put out this movie.
Yeah. No choice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Zach, you have a recommendation?
I do have a recommendation. Frank, what do you know about volleyball?
Not much.
Good. This has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
So I started watching The Bear on FX.
I didn't like The Bear.
You didn't like The Bear? Seriously? This seems like so much of a you thing.
I just didn't connect. I didn't finish it because I found I really, really lost interest in The Bear. I don't want to take away from your recommendation, but I don't know. I watched like the first 3 episodes and it felt very like cut of the mill to me. I was like, okay, this is like, I know what this movie, like I don't know. I felt like I know where it was all going, and maybe I was wrong, but it's like these people, they're all working in this industry, in this restaurant, sandwich shop, whatever it is, and like they all hate they don't want to listen to what's his name, whatever his name is, like because he's like the new guy and whatever, and then eventually they're all gonna slowly turn around, and the sandwich shop is gonna become pretty successful because everybody is eventually everyone's gonna eventually have their heart to heart with him, and they're gonna understand each other, and then they're actually gonna care about what they do. And like I don't know if that's what it turns into, because I do know that it was turning into a second season. I thought it was gonna be a limited series, and it was gonna be from season 1 everybody hates him, and then season 3 they all get together and they're all happy and blah blah blah. But apparently it's going on to a second season.
Yeah,
I know it's got very, very good reviews, so I know I'm in the minority there, but like it didn't work for me.
I don't know, like this is very much for me like how the White Lotus was for you, where it's like I can only watch like 2 episodes at a time because like it's giving me anxiety about it. I'm getting like fully invested into these people, like Cammy being a main character of Jeremy Allen White. I think he got like nominated, or he won like a Grammy or whatever the fuck. What's the one for TV?
An Emmy.
Emmy. Yeah. I really don't care besides like Oscar. That's like the only thing that I know of.
Yeah.
But like him winning that, and then like Christopher Storer, I know like he wrote and directed 5 of the episodes, and then like somebody else did like 2 other episodes. It's very digestible. It's like 8 episodes. They're all like 30 minutes long, except for like the last one, which is an hour. I love the cinematography for this film. Like it's very much like first episode watching it, I immediately got reminded of like Whiplash, of like just really cut, like quick, like fast, like we're showing you everything. We're showing you like how everything's being made, and like the timing of everything, and like the anxiety of what it's like to be a chef.
Yeah.
Like I really, really loved that. The story too, with like his cousin Robbie, like is building up. Like I'm only on like episode 6, so I'm like right about to finish it. But like Sydney being like a supporting character, she's really cool. Marcus, who is actually Lionel from Odd Future / Loiter Squad, I was really surprised about that. And then I've talked about him before, but Maddie Madsen is in this as an executive producer, and then also as the character Fack, which I think is really funny because like he actually is a chef, but he's like the utilities guy. So like I'm just like really loving this show. Like it's almost to the point where I was like had you not seen it and told me about that just now, like I was like, this is something that we should do for the podcast, like how we did with Midnight Mass.
So sorry.
Yeah. I
mean, I would watch it again. I would watch it and sit down and try to and whatever, because again, I didn't finish it. Because I was just like, I don't know. I feel like I've seen so many movies about like chefs and like that take place in the restaurant, and like it for me personally, it just didn't really feel like it was adding much. Like it's all like all of those types of movies, all of those kitchen movies are quick cut, a really long continuous takes, and everything's high anxiety. Like it's all the same. So like I don't know. It just
But you like chef stuff.
I do.
The amount of chef stuff we've done in this.
We've done one movie called Chef.
Oh, we also did Ratatouille.
That was your choice.
We talked about the menu.
We didn't even talk about the menu on the
Well,
podcast.
no, but we not on
But
the
like,
podcast.
yeah, you know. So I don't know. I would be willing to do it again, just to see. But first time watching it, I stopped. I just didn't. I wasn't quite invested there as much as I thought I was really hoping to be because of how good the reviews were. But yeah, I mean,
I
watch
love
it
the
for
show.
yourself and make your own make your own opinion on it, and maybe you'll like it more than me.
Yeah, I love the show right now.
That's good. We're gonna be talking about some of what we think is perfect casting in our next episode. Perfect casting. You can't imagine anybody else playing this character. So look forward to that. Zach, take us out.
All right, guys, thank you for listening. Now, Frank, the owl's kiss has something to do with everything.